So here I'd like to introduce you to an ex-student of mine, Tom, and this was his Component 2 externally set assignment for his A-level, and he chose this the question manufactured structures, and I wanted to take you through his sketchbook because it's so thorough, it's so in-depth, and it's an exemplar example of how to follow the sketchbook cycle and to record that journey really effectively. So let me take you through it. So he starts off with his mind map. Then he's got his mood board here, so he's grabbed lots of images off Pinterest, and he's included key photographers like Michael Wolff, Lewis Boltz, but in amongst those he's got various other resources of images that he's collected. Then he's decided to do primary artists. Now this is a great idea to sort of focus on some of those key artists that relate to that theme. And then he's created a sort of exploratory mood board. And he's done an in-depth research on Edward Bernski's work here, as he's looking at in sort of industrial landscapes and the impact of man on landscapes, and he's also looked at this artist here, Bernski too, and you can see it's very thorough. We've got the content, form, process, mood, context, and who's inspired the artist as well, and he's tried to sort of tie that in, and he's focused on the focal point of the images as well. Then this was his first shoot that he took at Dungeness, and again he's used some lovely, so he's got 32 key images here, and then he designed this lovely sort of contact sheet key, which I know some other schools use as well, and he put this together himself. So he started to use that and use these symbols, marking which ones he felt were successful, and then he was clearly sort of explaining his intentions of the shoot, the techniques he used, and then he was reviewing and refining his ideas, linking these two artists again, and thinking about how he wanted to develop from his next shoot. So we can see there's quite a variety of different images here. Then he's linked his work to the artists that he's researched, and then he started to pick some of those key images. You can see really strong visual connections with the work, like so. And even here with the horizon you can see that visual link to the work. So this was his first shoot, so he's selected a variety of images. Fantastic here, this sort of layering of this sort of manufactured structures. Then he starts to push the ideas further and starts to look at exploring kind of different processes and working by hand as well. So here he's got the stitching here with the pylons, and then he's using this rip technique as well and overlaying that, and then the layering, the slice layering, the glitching effect as well he's produced in Photoshop. Then a crumpling process as well to give it that sort of aged, weathered look. And then he's then inverted the images. So he's always pushing those ideas. And then he's done a sort of quite an in-depth image deconstruction of two of his strongest images as well, and linking his research artists, talking about the process, the mood of the images, the context, the ideas. And this is very good because it sort of breaks the image down, makes it really clear to see the different thought processes that he's followed taking his shoots. Then he's moved on to his next research artist. So we've got Lewis Boltz here and Abbott here, and then he's picked these very the sort of very industrial images that he's taken this time, very much looking at the structures of the pylons, again using the contact key, marking which ones he wanted to use, visually linking his work, and then editing his images. So it's got similar camera angles which are linking really well to the artist clearly here, stating the camera settings as well. And again, you can see those connections really clearly. Very thorough. Everything is, you know, every piece of work that's in there, he's written up a piece about it to sort of explain his intentions. It's not necessary to always write this, but this is just the way Tom liked to work. He was very thoughtful. He was very much wanted to make sure everything was in depth. He started to introduce video here as well. So then he started to look at Paul Strand and Cortez, and then this was his third shoot. So again, exactly the same process, marking which ones. I mean, he could be a bit more committed almost on the contact sheets and draw a bit more on those contact sheets, but you can see the images that he's selected and that he's been working on. And there we got a sort of stone finish here linking with the Paul Strand. Lovely use of shallow depth of field as well, which is clearly stated in his camera techniques. Again, lovely use of shallow depth of field. And then he's created an interim evaluation to kind of reflect midway through his project how he'd been doing. And then he started to look at some other photographers. And now he's moving into sort of more kind of a twilight. So we've got that lovely sort of twilight sky coming in, and the lights as well from the power station, little subtle details. So he did invest in a 50mm prime lens as well, so this has really helped him create these lovely shallow depth of field images. And you can see really strong connections there as well. So he's taken lots and lots of images and revisited the same location but at different times of the day as well. So that can make a significant difference to the mood and the feeling of the picture. Lovely little details here as well. Returning back to this sort of crumpling technique that he's used here. And then he starts to look at Dan Holsworth. And he starts to introduce a bit more sort of twilight, and he stays at the location for longer. He starts experimenting with playing with the lights as well, and creating a bit of sense of movement, almost mimicking the sort of energy of the warehouse of the factory there as well. So the Dungeness power station, what I'm trying to say. So there we've got this as well, lovely detail. So really nice use of colour coming into the work as well, which is lovely. Here we go as well, all sort of lit up. And then again, using this idea of the burning and the layering, it starts to look at the idea of the colours of the drawing with the light as well. So this is Tom's second sketchbook, and here he starts to think about actually creating his own structure. So he starts to explore a Meccano, and then he starts to actually build his own pylon. He starts to make these lovely additional pieces where he's using his stitching and print together and looking at multi-textures and surfaces. And then he starts to plan his final outcome. So he does a simple little mock-up initially. So he uses this box here as a sort of maquette. Good use of diagrams as well. So he starts to use that, and then he starts to put his thought process together. So he's recreating a scene from one of his photos of the Dungeness power station, and then he also wants to incorporate the structures of the wired fence, and then wants to create a Meccano pylon. So it starts to explore the different textures, surfaces, materials that he's going to use. And then he starts to also think about creating another additional piece where he's taking sections of these structures, sort of abstract sections, and then printing them onto sort of acetate. So they become like structures suspended, and he's looking at light boxes and acetate, and you know, really thinking about the planning of what he was going to do. And he's created a photo book as well, and then he had a set of framed images that he showed, and then he had his exhibition planned here as well. So very, very methodical, and he started to use a template, so dropping his pictures in as how he would show them, and then this was some additional work here as an outcome. But he's got one more sketchbook I want to show you too. So this is Tom's final sketchbook, and he produced this to sort of record the progress of his final outcomes. So throughout the exam conditions, he started to record the planning, but also what he was doing across the 15 hours. So if we turn to the first page here. So step one here, he's clearly showing the materials that he's got and what he plans to do, and he's got his maquette Meccano of the pylon, so that he's equipped already to be able to create that during the exam condition. Here he's then spray painted it, give it that nice matte finish, and then he starts to build his structure. So he's replicating one of his photographs of a view from Dungeness. And this just really helps visually show the step-by-step guide of how he produced this piece. So then he's also put the chicken wire on. He's backed one of his photos here in the background as well. And then he's put all these sort of stones to replicate the texture and the surfaces within the photos. And then he's just gone so far with all the details as well, which we've seen in his previous photo shoots, in these details here. And you see here step 9, so a lot of it's already produced, and then he starts to photograph it under different lighting conditions. And then he's shown how he's created the individual details for the work. So it's just so thorough, so in-depth, so meticulous. It's an absolute pleasure to look through. And then here as well, he's then basically treated his model piece as if he was photographing it as he was photographing Dungeness. So we've got the same sort of vantage points, viewpoints, shallow depth of field as the previous shoots that we've seen in his previous sketchbooks, and we can see here. So, and then he's visually linking there where we go, where he's added those details and seen those details here as well. So it's a student that has gone above and beyond, who is completely committed to their project and has clearly thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think that's the key thing. If you enjoy what you do, you take real pride and you'll go that extra mile. And Tom has gone beyond an extra mile. And then he's also produced these lovely linear structures as an additional final outcomes as well. So we've got these lovely abstract details, which are on almost like little light boxes. And then he's created a very in-depth evaluation outlining all his work. And, you know, there's certain students that stick in your mind who leave a lasting impression. And Tom definitely is one of those students. And I'm really pleased to say that he's only just recently passed his degree in interior design, at the Chelsea School of Arts, and his photography skills that he learnt at Earlscliffe, he's been applying those throughout his degree, and he has gone from strength to strength, and he's so driven and so committed, and I know he's got a wonderful future ahead of him because of the way that he applies himself to his work. He's so thorough, he's so in depth, he's so committed. So yes, so I'm really proud to have taught Tom, and to see the progress that he's made since the photography course, and now onto his degree, and now going out into the industry. So it's all about really committing yourself to the work. So these sketchbooks really show that evidence. So I hope this gives you some ideas on how you can put together your sketchbooks, and especially the exam process. Think about, how you can record your 15 hours and actually show it as a in-depth body of work of the journey that you took.